Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're going to be looking at spellcasting, and specifically, we're going to be looking at first level spells for the Warlock. Warlocks are possibly the most complicated spellcasters in all of D&D. Their pack magic feature isn't the same as the spellcasting for all other casters. These guys work very, very differently. First of all, they only get a couple spell slots through their entire career. At level 1, when you get your pack magic feature, you have a single spell slot. Just one. You're going to be using your cantrips way more than you're going to be using your leveled spells. Thankfully, they come back on a short rest, which is nice. That's the whole thing about warlocks, is they like taking short rests to get their spell slot back, or spell slots. But it means that when they cast their leveled spells versus their cantrips or their evocations or invocations, they're going to be really, really desperate. Using a spell slot for a warlock is a big deal. They don't just throw these things around, which means they have to choose carefully. This means that because they can't cast their spells very often, they have to pick different spells than other spellcasters do. These spells really have to pack a punch. So, let's have a look at the best spells, the top 5 I've chosen, for warlocks at level 1. Starting off at number 5, we have Arms of Hadar. Hadar is a name you'll hear come up a lot when you're talking about warlock spellcasting. It's some ancient eldritch god that that is often responsible for giving warlocks their power. Think of Cthulhu. That's kind of what Hadar is. Most of his attacks have tentacles involved, and Arms of Hadar is no different. You cast it as an action, and for 10 feet around you, it's an AoE. All creatures within that space, including your allies, so be careful, have to make a strength save. If they fail, they take 2d6 damage and cannot take reactions until their next turn, which means they can't opportunity attack or cast reaction spells or anything like that. If they succeed on the save, they take half damage and no other effect. But as far as an emergency AoE goes, this is not bad. If you're surrounded and you got no other choice, you cast Arms of Hadar and you will be tentacle slapping everyone around you. That's why it's at the bottom of the list. It's really just there for emergency use. I wouldn't choose this as my first pick, but it's not bad. Then at number 4, we have Charm Person. No combat use, unless you're trying to get out of combat. But casting Charm Person, the creature makes a wisdom save, and if they fail, they are charmed by you. They consider you as a close friend. And that doesn't mean you're mind controlling them, you just, have an ally for the next hour. And doing this is very handy. Warlocks are charisma casters, so that means having a little bit of extra power to charm folks and get their way outside of combat. Very handy. And since it lasts for an hour, that's a pretty good use of a spell slot. You're not just one and doneing. Of course, the charm person spell, after it wears off, the person knows they were charmed by you, so be careful with that. But it's still a great spell. Then at number 3, we have Armor of Agathis. Armor of Agathis is a cool spell for one reason. It scales unbelievably well. You cast the spell, and you gain temporary hit points. 5 at level 1. These 5 temporary hit points stay on you till the spell ends or until they're depleted. But once you have been hit by a creature with a melee attack, while you have those temporary hit points, the creature takes 5 cold damage automatically, no saving throw involved. Now that's fine. If you are up against a creature that attacks for 4 damage, then that creature will take 10 cold damage in the process of depleting your hit points. But if they attack for 5 damage, they'll only take 5 damage because then the hit points are gone. The reason this scales well is because when you cast it with higher level slots, which warlocks do automatically, by the way, as they get higher level slots, the number of hit points and the number of damage done to the enemy goes up at the same time. 10 temporary hit points, 10 damage for each time you're hit. That's important. If a creature's attacking for 5 damage, for example, when they hit you at the first level, They'll take 5 cold damage and that's done. But if they attack for 5 damage and you're casting this at 2nd level, they will attack you twice to get rid of the temporary hit points, taking 10 cold damage each time. So instead of the 5 damage from before, it's 20 damage instead. This is a phenomenal boost, and Armor of Agathis is a really clutch low-level pick for Warlocks that they will keep throughout their career. It is well worth the use, especially at higher levels. Then at number 2, you have a reaction spell. I wouldn't waste your reactions on the shield spell. Not all Warlocks can learn shield anyway, but Hellish Rebuke, when a creature hits you with an attack within 60 feet of you, you use your reaction to rebuke them for hitting you. They make a dex save, and if they fail, they take 2d10 fire damage, as literally the fires of hell burn them because they attacked you. It's like, hey, no. It's a cool power, and not a bad amount of damage, too. 2d10 is nothing to scoff at, and it does scale as it goes up. A nice reaction power, just to tell folks don't mess with the Warlock. Only beaten out by the number 1 pick, Hex. Hex is the classic Warlock pick, and the Hex spell, you, as a bonus action, designate a creature within 90 feet of you. Every time you hit that creature with an attack, any attack, they take an extra 1d6 damage. This is great for a Warlock who's firing Eldritch Blasts, or even using a sword if they're a Hexblade. This Hex ability just makes you do extra damage with every attack. But it has a secondary feature too, where you choose one of the 6 ability scores, and the creature has disadvantage on ability checks with that score. That doesn't come up much in combat unless you're grappling, which means that strength ability checks are probably the one you want to debuff most of the time. Because it doesn't debuff saving throws. It doesn't debuff like wisdom saves for save or suck effects, or dex saves for AoEs, or anything like that. It's just abilities. So I'd stick with strength most of the time. But it's really what we're here for is the damage. The damage of Hex makes it very competitive. And if the creature dies, you could just bonus action, move it to another creature, no need to waste another spell slot. And that matters for a Warlock. Hex is the quintessential pick, and if you're hexing and Eldritch Blasting, you're doing good as a Warlock. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes peeled for more spellcasting videos coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.